Welcome to All About Kids. I'm Jean Stevenson. I teach at Tennessee Wesleyan College in Athens, Tennessee, and I'm here with my good friend, Theodore Taylor, to talk about his books and writing. Ted, the kids that I talk to a lot want to know where your ideas come from.
Ideas literally come from everywhere. I read daily newspapers continually, and I also do research on other books that I'm writing, and very often out of one book is born another book. This has happened time and time and time again over many, many years.
What book did The Cay come out of?
The Cay came out of a book called Fire on the Beaches. It was an adult book that I was working on in 1956. And one morning in Coast Guard headquarters in Washington, D.C., I came across an account of a little Dutch ship that was torpedoed down in the Caribbean. A little boy of 11 got off of it, but drifted off into the night and was never seen again. And I recognized it at the time as a possible story, but then I didn't write it for 11 years. I have a bad habit of doing that. I'll get an idea and then sit on it for a long, long time. Average is about 4 years. Between the time that I get an idea and the time I write the book, it can be 4 years or even more.
Was there a book for adults that The Weirdo came out of?
The Weirdo, no. I grew up, the Weirdo, of course, is about that terrible swamp down on the border of Virginia and North Carolina. And I grew up near there. And I used to hunt and fish in there with my dad. And it was a spooky, spooky place. And I knew that someday that after I began writing books that I was going to do a book about it. Now the characters in that book are based on real people, the major ones. I do not have a good imagination, and I'm the first to admit it. I just do not. I couldn't write poetry, or I could not write science fiction or fantasy if somebody held a gun to my head. So I have to take all these books from real life and populate them with real people.
That's a terrific lead into my next question, because kids ask me who your characters are patterned after. Are they composites? Are they one or two people? Their favorite characters are Timothy and Philip in The Cay, and they want to know who Ben Jepson is. They want to know who Chip Clute is.
Well, they're all, they were, in some cases, and not us, but they were real people. They were modeled after real people. Timothy of the Cay was a real person. Philip was a real person. And all the rest of Chip Clute was modeled after a man that I sailed with during World War II who was severely burnt on one side of his body. And half of his face was handsome, really gorgeous. The other half was a mass of scar tissue. And the ship I was on, he hid on that ship for 18 months. He did not want people to see him, particularly women. So I used him as the character model for Chip Clute. And it occurs in almost every book. For the major characters, for minor characters, I don't really care. But the major ones have always had a person behind them. In the case of Timothy, he was a composite, really, but mainly one man, but other West Indian sailors that I'd met. I melded into his character.
What about Helen in The Trouble with Tuck?
Real girl. Helen is now a mother. She's 30-some years old, and she has children. She's a graduate of the University of California at Berkeley. And she was a friend of our family, and I picked her because she needed self-confidence, the real Helen. And I thought by letting her train the two dogs that she would get that self-confidence, and I think she did.
Now, I know that Sniper came out of another book. Could you talk about that other book and then talk about how Sniper evolved?
Well, Sniper came from a book about big cats that I did with an actress named Tippi Hedren. Tippi is a very lovely woman. She's alive, and she starred in Hitchcock pictures years ago. I did the story of her life for Simon & Schuster. And she told me one morning while I was taping, and I usually tape people for up to 50 hours before I am satisfied that I know something about their character. She told me one morning about a sniper who came up on a ridge overlooking her compounds, her big cat compounds, lions, tigers, jaguars, pumas, every imaginable big cat. And he had a high-powered rifle, and he came in a white pickup truck, and he got up and aimed and shot down into her compounds and killed 4 of her lions. And I said, Tippi, we're not going to use that story in this book for adults for the simple reason that some redneck may come and try to duplicate what this other guy had done, tragically. So I saved it, as I want to do. If I'm researching or if I get involved in something and I see that this is a book for adults here, but it also, one aspect of it can be for young readers. So I save that aspect and do a book for people from, 5th grade up, usually.
Because you moved Tippi's game preserve to another part of California?
Absolutely, for the simple reason that I didn't want anybody to come out there and start shooting again. Because these were wonderful lions. They were just wonderful, and I made a lot of friends with her big cats during the research on that book. Research took about a year to do.
Well, there's a splendid picture of you with a lion. And I've shown that picture to children when they read Sniper. And they want to know how you had the courage to go up and pet that lion. Was that lion a pet lion, or was it?
No, that was a lion named Scarface, and he was not a pet. But I had made friends with him, and this was a photo shoot that morning. And the photographer did not tell me that his girlfriend was sleeping up in one corner of the compound. And if you look at that picture, you'll see Boomer, his girlfriend, roaring, and she came up behind me and roared, and I ran for the gate, and I got out of there scared to death, just scared to death. But it was such a wonderful book to research. I'd go out there at night and wind all through the compound, black, no lights anywhere. And I'd see these green eyes tracking me as I wandered through, and it was a wonderful feeling. Hopefully that none of them would get out or get after me.
Where did you get sorry in the bomb?
Real boy.
Yes.
Real boy, yeah. I went to Bikini as an officer, junior officer on a ship. And I went ashore not long after we were there and met this young boy. He couldn't speak English, I couldn't speak Marshallese, but we talked with our hands. And he offered to show me the island that day and toured me throughout with really hand signals. And I became very fond of him. I went ashore 5 or 6 times. I brought a gift to him from the ship. And when I got ready to do that, I felt, although I hadn't spoken a word to him, I felt I knew him, and so I used him as the lead character in The Bomb, which is a very tough book to read, and it's not a happy story at all, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
It has an ending which will jolt most people. But I thought it was a book that needed to be written, and that's why I wrote it. I took me 48 years to get around to writing it. But
in the book, Sari's little sister leaves her doll.
yes.
Could you talk about that doll?
Yeah. After we took these people away from their homeland, there were 160 of them, and it was a very sad thing when they went away, because they'd lived there for centuries, and when we loaded them onto the ship to evacuate them from the island that was going to be atom bombed, they passed us close aboard on the USS Sumner, and they were singing a hymn, looking back at their homeland that was going to be destroyed. And we were all combat veterans on that ship, and I thought we were pretty tough guys. But as they passed us close aboard, every man that I could see up and down the railing that we were watching them go, they were all weeping, and very much including me. I went ashore later that day and found this doll, and I thought about it. It was sitting up against a post that was there at one of the huts. And I thought about taking it as a souvenir. But then I thought, well, this little girl, whoever she was, left it there to witness what was going to happen to her island, to her home. And so I used it in one scene in the book. I really, it was a terribly tough book to write. I found myself crying several times, because knowing they were very religious people, they were kind people, they were gentle people, and what we did to them was inexcusable.
Many of your books have a setting in World War II. The Children's War is set in World War II, and it's not the typical World War II book, because it doesn't take place in Europe, it takes place in Alaska.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that book? That book is, I think, very popular in Australia and New Zealand.
Well, I just felt that children were involved. I know the children were involved all over the world with World War II, and in many cases terrible things happened to them. I happen to know the son of a naval chief petty officer, and this kid, without ever being in war, loved war. I mean, he really soaked it up, and he read everything that he could about war, and he thought war was just wonderful. And so I had him as the main character in that book, along with his dog. It was half wolf. And I just wanted to teach him a lesson. I wanted, in a very personal way, to teach him how terrible war really was. The book is not successful. It was well reviewed, it was well accepted, and it sold well. But I know what's wrong with that book. And I rewrote that book. There it sits. I rewrote it 14 times, and I could just never conquer it, because one of the characters in it was an Eskimo, and I could not get inside this Eskimo. I'd never been, at that time, I hadn't been to Alaska. I have since, but it was just impossible for me to get inside this old Eskimo. and I read a lot about Eskimos, which I usually do. Most of the time, research is 60% of a book and 40% writing. But there was no way that I could really portray him the way he should have been portrayed. So it's my least successful book out of 51.
You've also done a lot of nonfiction books about World War II that are
Yes, I have.
well written.
Thank you.
Fine accounts that have a style that reminds me of a reporter's style. There's not a lot of extra fluff. They're very direct.
Well, that's because I was a reporter on 5 newspapers, and I learned how to take words out rather than put them in. And I got started in newspaper business, and I'm still basically I've written for 63 years now, and I'm still basically a reporter.
I hope you keep writing forever.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you. We've been here talking with Theodore Taylor, the 1997 winner of the Kerlan Award, my good friend, author of The Cay, Timothy of the Cay, The Children's War, Sweet Friday Island, Maria's Story, and many, many other books for children and young adults. Thank you.
I don't have anybody help me write the books, but I do have a good editor in San Diego who edits the books. So we fight sometimes about what should go in and what should stay in, and what should be dropped out.
You decided to write this book?
Well, by the time I wrote the first book, I'd written for magazines, and I'd written for radio, and I just decided to try and see if I was capable of writing a book. And after struggling with it for 2 years, I finally produced it. It took so long to do it because I didn't know what I was doing. And anytime you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take you long to do it.
The question was, do you know how to read and write?
My mother taught me to read. I was reading when I was about 5 years old. She started reading to me when I was maybe 2.5 Bible stories, and then by the time I was 5, I was reading on my own. By the time I was 8, I had my own library card. And reading has been a part of my life, and I think it's a wonderful part of life for anybody. You can learn an awful lot from books.
After you wrote all your books, did you look over them? Did you read them after you?
Well, I usually write 4 to 7 drafts of each book, and sure, I look over them. I try to correct them. I try to make them as good as I can possibly make them. One book I rewrote 14 times, and it was published, and the reviews were pretty good, but I know the flaws in that book, and I don't like it at all.
Are you going to write anymore?
I'm going to be writing until I die. I don't know when I'm going to die, but I'm going to be pecking away at that old German typewriter until I do die. Yes, sir, you're hiding back.
If you're going to write another book, what do you think it would be about?
Well, I'm 2 chapters from finishing another book. The book is called The Flight of Jesse Leroy Brown. He was the first black naval aviator, and he struggled against tremendous odds to win his golden wings and to fly off naval aircraft carriers. His story parallels in a way Jackie Robinson, but I'm 2 chapters from finishing that novel, and it will be a novel based on truth, and it will be published in Black History Month next year.
I want to know if you have any advice for any of these children who might want to become writers like you.
You bet I do. You have to write every day, and you can start off at your age. Some of you here are almost 13 or moving toward 13, but you have to do it every day. You have to do a little bit every day, and then increase it, increase it, increase it. No, that's about 3 years old.
What's your new book?
book called Rogue Wave. It's not in paperback yet.
Well, we've got a great new program at the Minneapolis Public Library. The name of the program is TALK, which stands for Teen Advisors Letting Us Know. And the name of the program really says what it's about. We've got groups of kids, groups of teenagers, ages 12 through 18, at the different libraries, the different branches around Minneapolis. And the format of the program really comes from them. They decide what we're going to do at each meeting, the focus of each group, and let us know, let the staff of the library know what they want the program to be about, what kind of books and programs they want to have happening at the library. So it's been a really exciting program, getting to hear a lot of input from the different youth. What are we going to do next time?
I'm going to bring my picture next time.
I'm going to bring a couple of things.
I'm reading it.
What are you bringing?
A speech and maybe a story.
Now, what's your speech about?
It's called Paul Revere's Life.
Wait a minute, I can't hear her.
That's not one of your best ones.
One thing we did is we've got a brochure that we put together after the program got started. We recruited most of the kids without the brochure. Then the library staff designed it initially. We took it out to a couple of meetings and we gave it to the kids and we said, here, what do you think? And they said, no way, we don't like it. We don't like it at all. So we wrote down what the kids didn't like, what they thought the brochure should look like, and we redesigned it completely. It just is completely different than it was when we started it. You know, the big thing that we're working on citywide is the newsletter. The kids submit writing, kids from each branch. So we've got book reviews, some of just the kids' favorite books. We reviewed different series, some of the R.L. Stein books and some of the Babysitters Club books, and they kind of talked about which ones they liked best out of each series. They do movie reviews, artwork, poetry. A bunch of the kids wrote poetry and some essays, short stories, a great short story, a couple of the girls who are really writing down all of their life experiences and just doing it in a real creative way, just adding a lot of drama to kind of the everyday events of their life.
Christy and I love writing down our real life experiences, like adventures that we have together. And so we're going to write a series. We are going to write a series called The Three Inseparables.
About her, my sister, and me.
And we're going to just make a series out of it and tell our real life experiences and adventures as we grow up together.
So we're putting this out 4 times a year. This is our first issue, but we're going to be putting out four issues every year. It's really fun. The kids are really excited about that part of the project.
I'm going to bring my thing.
What's your movie review, Sabina?
It was called The Stone Boy.
The Stone Boy. Has anyone else seen this?
It's based on a short story. I'm going to go see next week Liar Liar, and I'm going to go see Jungle to Jungle.
Yes, go see Liar Liar.
And I'm going to write it.
You're going to write it? You're going to write the reviews? Mm-hmm. All right.
Yes. You can write lots of reviews.
Oh, yeah.
And beyond that, each library that we've got the program going at has a different focus. Some of the kids really focus on book discussion.
I think it's always good to hear about books that we'd never go and pick ourselves necessarily, but somebody else might pick. And so I'm going to just show you a few books that I think are really cool from the shelves. You may or may not think they're cool. And I'm going to show you some of the people that it's very interesting. I'm like, You know, your bedrooms can be places that are really comfortable and secret and only you want to go, or they can be places that you have to share with somebody. I did growing up. I had to share with people. This is Dina, and that's her bedroom. I'm going to leave these books here at the end when we're all done. Here's Rick. He loves he loves comic books. Here's Dawn, who talks about how hard it is to be a teenager.
On book discussion, some of the groups just do a lot of talking about their favorite books, talking about books they don't like, talking about the best movies they've seen, and other libraries wanted to do more community service. So one of the libraries is trying to put together a book collection where they're going to collect books and donate them to daycare centers and underprivileged children, so that younger kids can, who may not come from backgrounds where they'd have a lot of books, are able to start reading from an early age. There's just creative stuff going on at some groups and community service at some other groups. So it's just been really fun. Dega brings a friend. Dega always is bringing someone. Now, how do you talk these people into coming with you?
Yeah, that's one thing I told my friends. Sounds like free food. Like everyone. And I was like, you get to talk all you want. And
Because, first of all, I like reading books, and it gives me a great opportunity to talk about books I've read, and I get to meet lots of friends.
I like to read.
and she gets to read happy birthday.
And I get to read Happy Birthday to every other week. I like coming because I like talking. And I like talking about anything just about. Because I like asking about the twins. The twins should get in the stadium. And
Okay, I like to come here because I'm homeschooled, so I don't get to be around with other kids and see what they think of the same books that I'm reading. And so it's a chance just to talk about different books and different movies. And I like to write and have the opportunity here to publish what I write.
I like coming to talk because I get to connect with a lot of other teens that I wouldn't be able to otherwise. And I like sharing about my favorite books and movies that I've read.
No, not really any other kids that I know who like to read books. I mean, my school, a lot of them is books. Ew.
And they usually come with me down here. And when I ask them how you guys like it, they're like, it's really nice and cool.
And for more information about the TALK program, the Teen Advisors Letting Us Know program, you can call the Minneapolis Public Library Young Adult Services Department at 372-6562.